not getting on my good screen. All right, there we go. So, the function, we are rotating around the x-axis. If we were looking, I'll try my best to do sine of x absolute value would look like this from 0 to pi. Just a sketch. And then, this is getting in the way. I mean, if we rotated it around, it would be this like capsule thing, okay? And this picture doesn't do it justice because I'm not a good drawer. First of all, this sign has gone completely around and it's all filled in, okay? And so we're slicing it into these pieces. And so when I'm finding the radius is based on the height. Okay. And that does give us the radius because, think about it, the entire circle, like if I was trying to draw these circles, okay, it's like these slices, these discs, all the way around. So if I would cut, like if you had a capsule and they cut into slices, and you open that capsule and just look at the edge, you would see circles. And those circles would have radius defined by this function. Okay, so what would be my formula for that then? Using the horizontal axis of revolution.
Would you take the pi r squared formula, or for r would you...
We're going to use this formula up here. So it is pi r squared, but we can pull the pi out to the front of the integral. Okay, so I am going to do pi, and the endpoints, this is where the figure starts and stops. So what would I use? 0 to pi. And I'm doing now, this is like pi r squared. And the integral part is just adding up the circles. So my function is sine of x squared. Okay, simplifying that, what is going to happen to that then? It just turns into pi times the integral from 0 to pi of sine of x. Does that make sense? And I forgot the dx there, I'm sorry. Okay. Gosh, that's blurry to me. I don't think that's much better. Okay, help me out here, guys. What do I do next? Do the antiderivative or the integrand, which would be?
Negative.
Okay, negative cosine of x, and don't forget what's on the outside of this expression. Pi is in the front. So at the end, I'm going to multiply my answer by pi. I would do that at the end. And I'm evaluating from pi to 0. Okay, so I have pi out here. What's negative cosine of pi? What would that be? Positive 1, because the cosine at pi is negative 1, but I'm taking the opposite of it. Okay. Minus the cosine or the negative cosine at 0. Okay, so minus a negative 1, correct? Okay. Which would leave me with 2 pi. Okay. Now, let's take at one that's a little trickier. I won't assign a tricky one on your homework, but not a really tricky one. Maybe a kind of tricky one. Does that make sense to you? Are you visualizing it? Okay. All right. Now, what about if I wanted to rotate again, but I didn't want to rotate on the x-axis? Okay. I wanted to rotate on a horizontal line y equals 1. Okay. So if that were to happen, could I still figure out the radius of the circle? I might just have to manipulate my function a little bit, okay? So let's sketch a picture of this. Describe to me what 2 minus x squared would be. an upside down parabola, and it would have a vertex of 2, and it would be, if I were to sketch a picture, I could go over 1, down 1, correct? And then couldn't I also go over 2, down 4 if I wanted to? Okay. Oh, but wait a second. Well, I will do that. Hey, do you see how it ends at 1 there, though? This y equals, g of x equals 1. So I'm going to actually stop there. Okay, so here's my parabola where it meets the line y equals 1. This is the line y equals 1. So now I want to take this portion of the parabola and rotate it around the y equals 1 axis. So now the radius would it wouldn't be defined by this function, it would be defined by how far away from the line y equals 1 it would be. Does that make sense? Okay, I'll show you a picture again. Down at the bottom here, can you guys see that? This is the x-axis where my finger is at the bottom, but this is, I want this rotated around the line y equals 1, so I have to figure out what that would be. Well, then I just have to figure out what the radius would be with respect to this, okay? So the function would be, pretend that this was the x-axis, what would the function be then? How far would it get? Instead of, instead of 2 minus x squared, what would it become? How far away from the line y equals 1 is it? 1 minus x squared. Okay. Okay, so, and yes, Danny, you're right, it's from negative 1 to 1, and so essentially here's what I'm doing. I'm taking, to figure out the radius, I'm taking f of x minus g of x. Okay. Alright, so I have the integral from negative 1 to 1, well the volume's going to be pi, and then the radius is going to be defined by this area. And that's where the area comes, remember how we found area the other day, or not the other day, but even today, we subtracted the two functions. Okay, and we're going to find the radius in that kind of same way by subtracting two functions. Alright, so I'm going to write this as 1 minus x squared dx.
So the g of x doesn't really even matter because that's the x symmetry.
Correct. Now what we're going to start doing...
So we have to square that?
We are going to square this.
Okay.
Are you Jolly Ranchering me?
Yeah.
I really don't know if I would have remembered. What we're going to do later on, it's going to be super cool, is we're going to take little pieces and rotate them around, and then you have to have, we use a washer instead of a disc. Don't worry, that's later on in the week. Okay. This is, he corrected me because this is the radius squared. Alright, so we're going to do some algebra here. Can I do some side work over up the top here? 1 minus x squared really means this, if I was squaring it, correct? Okay, let's do that. That would be 1 minus x squared, that would be minus 2x squared. And what happens when you multiply negative x squared times negative x squared together? Plus x to the 4th. Okay, so this expands to that. Do you guys see what I just did up there? Yeah. Okay. So the volume is pi times the integral from negative 1 to 1 of 1 minus 2x squared plus x to the 4th dx. Okay, let's integrate that. I'll put it on Moodle, the problem.
Okay.
You're like, yeah, right, you will.
Well, you say
It's like a 50-50 chance. Okay, what would I get here? X minus 2/3 x cubed, right? Plus 1/5 x to the 5th, but the nice thing is I have just from -1 to 1. Okay. What? Yep. Alright. So, I put 1 in. 1 minus 2/3 plus 1/5, correct? Minus -1 plus 2/3 minus 1/5. And actually this pi is going to be around that whole thing. Okay, so what I see here is this is 1 minus -1. I'm just kind of piece this together, which is what? 2? Minus 2/3 minus 2/3, that's minus 4/3? 1/5 minus a -1/5, that's plus 2/5. Let's do some common denominators here. I think I'm going to need a 15, right, to get these fractions to add together. So if I did a common denominator of 15, let's see, that would be 30/15 minus 20/15, right? Yeah. I'm just doing common denominator, plus 6/15. Okay, 30 minus 20 is 10, plus 6 is 16/15 pi. How's that? And I know